A question I get asked a lot is, how do you read so many books? Another question I get asked is, where do you find the time to read even with work? How are you able to balance your reading? What's your reading routine like? Do you have a schedule? Do you read a certain number of pages every day? How do you come out of a reading slump to continue reading more books? A whole lot of other questions. So today I'm going to be sharing my reading routine, what works for me, what has worked for me over the years, and what flat out doesn't work for me. If it's helpful to you, you might just be able to kickstart a healthy reading routine and read more books. So let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's your girl Rachel here again. If you haven't done so, kindly click that subscribe button so that you never miss a thing and you're subscribed onto my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing with you my reading routine, what I typically make use of, and what has helped me and what has not helped me. So I'll start with TBRs. TBRs are to be reads. So some people like to have schedules of what they'll read in a certain period of time, the list of books that they read. I typically make use of TBRs, especially at the beginning of the month. At the beginning of the month, I look at some books off my shelf, or I look at Goodreads, or I look at books on the internet that are interesting, or maybe they've been recommended. I also look at the times or what's going on within me. Maybe there's some sort of motivation that I need to do something, or I want to learn something new, and so that helps me compile my TBR. Maybe for like the month of May, for example, I say, okay, in the month of May I'm going to read so and so books. I also have the books that I read from my book club, and so every month we select maybe like one book or two books depending on how crazy things are around us. So I also add that to my to be read. It helps me to be able to keep track of the books that I've read and to have a sort of more organized feel, knowing the books that I need to read, and these are the ones that are left there for me. However, I would say that during the month, maybe one book would just pop up on one social media, and it might not even be a new book, it might just be an old book, and somebody say, oh, have you read? Or somebody will message me and say, have you read this book? I'll take note of it. If I have the money, I'll get it at that point in time. The book might just be looking at me, and I'm looking at the book like, I want to read you. And then the book is like, yeah, come and read me because I'm very interesting. Yeah, we have such conversations amongst ourselves in secret. I promise I'm not weird. Anyway, so yeah, so I can just decide to break away from my TBR and read something, just trying to be spontaneous or something like that, and it works for me because I'm able to explore different genres in a month. Another thing that I'm also able to do in my reading routine is I'm able to spread across different genres in a month, like I said. So in a month I could read thriller, I could read, you'll never really catch me reading romance, to be honest with you, except it's a romantic thriller. Yeah, then maybe. So you might catch me reading any form of thriller, non-fiction, generally a lot of African books, some self-help books, or whatever it is. Whatever I'm able to get my hands on, or what I had planned ahead of time that I'm going to read, I'll just go for it. But the most important thing is I create the time because I'm passionate about it, because I love reading. You will never really catch me without a book, even when I'm going to court and I know that I'm going to be there for a while. If my matter is not the first matter, I'll probably be reading. I'm not going to be pressing my phone. There's only so much pressing phone that you can do, that you're refreshing your feed. You've watched all the Insta story, you've watched all the Snapchats, you've done everything on Twitter, on Facebook, everything, and you're just there looking like a potato. There's nothing for you to do, and then you're yawning and drifting off. You don't even really feel like sleeping. I always take my book to work during the week. If I'm going to court, I know that, very good, I may have time to read this book. If I'm not going to court, during my lunch break, I take time out. If it's 1 hour, I sit down. Sometimes, it's not all the time, sometimes I'm tempted to watch whatever new episode or whatever series that I may be interested in at that particular time. I may use my lunch to watch that while I'm eating. If I don't, then I'll read the book that I read. If I'm not able to read anything throughout the day, when I come back from work, if I'm not too tired, shortly before I go to bed, then I may do an hour or so of reading. Sometimes too, I also try to read a specific amount of pages in a day. So I may just decide I'm going to read 50 pages today, no matter what time or no matter how often I pick up the book during the day. So for this hour I may read 5 pages another time, but the most important thing is that day I'm going to read 50 pages, and that helps me because it's not all the time I'm able to reach that 50 pages. Sometimes I'll end up reading 30, then the next day I add the 20 to the number of pages that I want to read. So I also have like a specific amount of pages that I want to read sometimes. Then also I think in terms of talking about time, creating time to read books, I think that my routine is, it's very, very flexible. I don't have a particular time during the day that I read books. I just, as the spirit leads, because I don't want it to look like my life is just books, books, books. I love series. I love Netflix. In fact, sometimes I have to catch myself like, okay, come on, you've been doing Netflix too much for like the past week or the past 3 days. You need to just calm down on it. And it's not like I'm watching new things on Netflix. So I literally watch the same movies. I watch old movies. I love watching old movies more than I love watching new movies, except for the series that have new episodes. I watch the same old movies like over and over and over again. So ask me why I'm doing that when I can read a book, right? So I always just have to catch myself, because I'm like, okay, fine, time to do something different. So, and if I'm getting bored of Netflix or whatever, I don't own a television, so I don't get tempted into becoming a couch potato and just sitting in front of the television surfing through channels like that I'm not interested in. So that also helps a lot. I spend some time on BookTube. Sometimes I get enveloped in it and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I can't get out of this. But hey, it's all fun, because with BookTube I'm able to learn more titles. I'm able to learn about new authors that I've never heard of before, and it's just always such a nice experience being able to connect with people, comment on their videos and what they've discussed that particular period. So I think that helps me. Just being intentional in creating time to read books really, really helps me, because before you know it, you'll be lying down there. If it's not YouTube, you're spending your time on, you're on Netflix. If it's not Netflix, you're on cable. If it's not cable, you're just in front of your TV. You're just on the phone the whole day, not even saying anything, just chatting away your time. You're not even, maybe especially if it's during the weekend and you're not doing any office work or something, the whole weekend's just gone, right? So I try to be intentional about creating time to read. Do I read every day? No. There's some days when I'm not just in the mood. It's not even that I didn't create time or I'm too busy. I'm just not in the mood to pick up a book, and that's okay. I've made peace with it. It's not a job. It's not a do or die affair for me anyways. I read because I love to read, right? So I never feel pressure to reading a book within a particular time frame. So that also helps me. I just try to be intentional about that. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is reading slumps. Do I get into reading slumps? All the time. I have reading slump PhD or something like that. Like, I find myself in reading slumps a lot more than I would like. Sometimes it's because of my physical health, sometimes it's because of my mental health. While I'm able to use books as an escape for my mental health, sometimes it just doesn't work, and I just need to find other ways to be able to help me out in that aspect. When I'm physically ill, as much as it seems like there's more time to read books, I can't get to doing anything. At that point, my priority is just to get better. So even if I'm not physically ill or mentally ill, sometimes I'm just in that zone where I'm like, you know what, I'm not in the mood to read any book. Or maybe I read a book that was raved about and it's not even interesting, and then I'm groveling through the pages trying to literally read something, and I can't read anything, and then I end up feeling like, oh, no other book might be interesting, and then I'm there 2 days, 4 days, 5 days, week 1, week 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I'm just there not reading. Sometimes I'm just not in the mood. So what do I do to get out of reading slumps? When I feel like I'm ready to read back, right, I actually go and look for a book that I know that will be interesting. Maybe it's gotten a lot of reviews, or it's just a bomb one, or I go and look for a short self-help book, or a short book at all, most likely self-help, that would jolt me back to action. And then I find that there are quite a number of short ones that are really profound and deep. And the good thing about it is that when I'm able to read those short books, I feel so much more better, because when I finish reading a book, I feel like, yes, I've done something right. Like, I can actually accomplish something. And then I read the next book, I'm like, yes. And so that keeps me on a roll. And then I just want to keep on reading. I'm going to do a video about 5 short self-help books that you can read. So you guys should look out for that, definitely. One time, somebody was talking about how maybe, like, if you're reading, do I take notes? Yes, I do take notes when I'm reading, especially non-fiction. I don't take notes when I'm reading fiction. If it's self-help and I learn valuable lessons, I do take notes. It helps me to be able to put out content when I'm reviewing the book, or it helps me to to just have it for my own personal consumption. For fictional books and for other books, in fact, for every book that I do a book review on, I take some notes down because I don't want to forget. Maybe there's something about the book that has caught my eye, so I just take a note. Maybe I put in my notes on my phone, or I just put it in a book. Another thing is that I'm typically open to recommendations, book recommendations from different sources, the internet, but I'm not a follow the rave kind of person. I can see a book up and down the whole place, like everybody's raving, people are dying about it, everybody's rushing to get it, but I'm not going to get it just because people are going to get it. If the synopsis doesn't stand out to me, I'm not going to get the book, or I'll get the book eventually whenever I want to. I just don't buy into the idea of like getting books just because people, like, you need to have your own taste. You need to have what goes for you, what is your cup of tea, because you will see people raving about a book and you read it and you're like, is this the same book that we both read? Like, definitely they're different versions of this book. And that's one amazing thing that I've learned about books and the booktube community. So yeah, I'm open to recommendations, but I just don't typically follow the wave like that. But I think for me, what is important is the love or the want to read books. I really, really love reading books, and that has worked for my routine. You know, there are days, there are weeks where I'm not interested in reading. That's with anything, to be honest. No matter how much you love something, there are days or weeks where you're not feeling it as much as some other periods of time. So yeah, there will be slumps here, but it's like, do you want to get back into it because you love it? Are you going to create the time, you know, to get into it? So it's not about me having so much time or me reading so many things at once, or just like finish this book today. But I must say, like, when I'm on a book reading, like, so the opposite of slump is a high. When I'm on a book reading high, like, I could read like 5 books in 7 days. Like, it can just take me 2 days to read each book, and I'm just going and going and going and going and going. And then there are times when I'm like, whatever, I'm really not in the mood. So it's all about you. Yeah, I've shared my reading routine. I share what works for me. I work as well sometimes, you know. Yeah, I don't relate to the whole being stuck in traffic thing, but maybe if you're stuck in traffic when you're coming back home from work, you can try audiobooks. I'm yet to get into the whole audiobook thing, I promise. Like, as much as I try, like, I've done a couple and I like them, but I don't know why I'm not really so all over it. I also have found that ebooks help a lot to read more, especially like maybe on your phone or on your device or on your Kindle or whatever. Those ones really, really help a lot too as well. So I've shared my reading routine. I make use of TBRs. I create time. I carry a book wherever I'm going to. I'm a lawyer. I appear in court sometimes. I'm always with a book. Wherever I know that I'll find myself, that I may be passing time, then I'm always with a book, so that I'm not just pressing my phone away. These are the things that have worked for me. I will take note of recommendations. I'll take note of titles. And when I can get them, I'll get them. When I can get to them, I'll get them. I don't mind reviewing a book that has been written 15 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, because at that particular time it resonates with me and I really, really enjoyed it. So if you're able to take some tips from this, then that would be good. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a thumbs up and let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what works for you. What reading routine do you have? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? And I will see you in my next video. Bye.